8, 9 students who have joined, right? No. No, Mulali. We'll start. Hmm. Okay. Coming to the, I hope you must have heard the duration and onset. We'll move on to the next component of the history taking is the progress, right? So once the cup started, what happens to that cup till now, right? That is what is a progress. Did it remain same? Did it increase? Did it decrease? Or it ups and down? You can call it as a remittent, right? It went down a bit, but again after some time or a periodical interval, it came back again. So what happened to that particular curve? Was it same, increase, decrease, or remittent? Why you want then information? Basically, there are different varieties of cough which will respond, which will give a clinical presentation differently. If it is same, what it means to you that the disease process is same, right? So let's say, for example, upper respiratory tract infection. Patient, you are attending the patient, maybe very second day or third day. The patient says he has got a cough, and you ask what is the progress? Is it same, increase, decrease? The first maybe couple of days, the patient will say that the cough is more or less same. There is no change. It has neither decreased or not decreased. This is very common scenario. So the same indicates that the pathological process we started with, which is the basic reason for cough, is more or less same. The combination is upper respiratory tract infection, right? The waxing and waning, that going up and going down, is many times the feature of allergy, basically. That in the morning the cough is more, as the day progresses, maybe after 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock, the cough is lower, and again in the evening the cough is more, right? So throughout the day, why you say, I say the office hours, the cough is better. Patient starts having cough maybe evening hours and the morning hours, and the patient is all right throughout the day. The classical description of allergic cough, right? So the waxing and waning, or maybe seasonal, you can say, that the patient, you are seeing the patient in the month of, let's say, June, today being 22nd, the patient will say that last month there was no cough. The patient says the cough lasts 2 or 3 weeks, and before that he was absolutely all right, and the cough is there, and ever since the cough started, it is going up and up. Earlier he used to be, he was able to work, do his all of the regular activities, but now he finds it difficult to talk to the people, to do his routine work, to sleep, and all sort of a thing, right? So it means if it is increasing in severity, right, it means the disease process that precipitated the cough, that caused the cough, is increasing. Very simple. The same increase and decrease. So if it is decreasing, it is possibly, if it is untreated, or if the patient, it is self-limiting, like viral and allergic many, or seasonal thing, and if it is decreasing with the treatment, because that will be the next part of the story, that whatever treatment he has taken, if he says that he is better with the treatment, if he says that the cough is lowering, or possibly the cough is responding to the treatment that patient has taken, right? So there is no reason to change the treatment unnecessarily. So it is absolutely important to know what happened to the cough once it started. Is it same, increase? Increase it only means whatever being done or is already done is not that helpful, right? So you need to change. Say somebody says that he has got a cough for last 7 days, and he has attended to some other physician, and then he has given him some drug, possibly antibiotic and antihistaminic, and also I'm talking from the allopathic point of view, and he comes to you on 7th day. Then you ask him, what happened to your cough? Did it respond to treatment or did it not? The patient says, obviously, since it not responded, patient come to you for a variety of reasons, because the previous physician is not available, because the previous the treatment prescribed by the previous patient is not helping the patient, isn't it? So he will come to you. So if he is attended the physician earlier, and if it is increased, it means the treatment what he has done is not sufficient. May not be correct, incorrect, may be correct but insufficient. So you will say it has increased. So it's obviously not comfortable, and since the treatment given by the previous physician is not helping him, so he prefer to choose for the new physician. Nothing wrong in it. So the same increase, decrease, and remittent is important for everybody to know, right? And then the cough is classified based on the severity, like mild, moderate, and severe. There is no objective. It's not like that you cough every minute, or you cannot measure the frequency of cough basically numerically, right? You cannot say that it's 5 cup per minute or 10 cup per minute or 20 cup per 20 times cupping per hour or something like that. There is no numerical classification. But a mild is something where there is a cough which doesn't interfere with his regular activities. That is for mild. That he can do all of, say somebody is a lady, he can do, she can do the kitchen activities, household activities, brooming, sweeping, and all other things. And even then the she continues to live with the cough, that you can call it a mild cough. What is moderate cough? Right, he finds it difficult to do the routine household activities, or do say somebody is going to office work, he finds it difficult to work while in the office, to talk to the people, to examine the patient if he is a doctor, right? So he finds it difficult to cope up with the day-to-day activities. And severe is he is incapacitated. He neither he can sleep, he cannot do his day-to-day activities. So that is what is mild, moderate, and severe. Why important? You can afford to wait and investigate and then prescribe the treatment accordingly in a mild case, right? But in a moderate case, you have to prescribe something so that symptomatically he is better. The mild case, you need not treat the symptoms. You can wait. As I said earlier, the cough is a physiological mechanism to heal the respiratory tract. Basically, it is helping the respiratory tract to take out some obnoxious material, right? So that is more important. The mild cough, if it is not disturbing the regular activities of the patient, the cough per se need not be treated. The reason for cough should be treated always. That is without a question. But a cough is, if it doesn't disturb the regular activity, if the patient can do all of his regular activities without much of inconvenience, you can wait for the cough to go after you start treating the cause of the cough, right? But in the moderate cough, especially in a severe variety of cough, since the cough itself is a disturbing element, patient cannot sleep, patient cannot talk, patient cannot do the routine activity, patient is uncomfortable. When cough itself is a problem, it's not that always the cough is a problem. Cough, on the contrary, is the body's defense mechanism. So mild cases you can wait, moderate case you can wait 50-50, but severe case you have to treat cough as an entity by itself, right? So that is very important. Coming to the next part, the type of cough, very important, right? As you know, the cough usually we classify into two varieties: a productive cough and a dry cough, right? Especially in the in a pediatric age group, there is some the third variety. This is my classification basically, which is neither productive nor dry, but is the type of or quality of cough that gives you the indication, that is whooping cough. Nowadays, because of the DPT vaccination and other thing, the whooping cough is that way a little bit rare, you can call. But whooping cough, basically, if the patient is that sort of thing, that is called as a whooping cough, and that you get nowadays commonly with the laryngitis, and that is associated with change in voice. That's a different variety. But otherwise, for all practical purposes, we classify the cough into productive and dry. Productive means which comes out the cough with sputum, and dry means cough without sputum. That is a varied combination. But that is not true all the while. The productive cough initially may be dry in nature, that a patient will cough, 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 and cough, and at the end of the cough, he will take out some sputum. Right? You should always ask all those things. He will, because the cough is a protective mechanism, the cough will continue till that expectoration is out. Once the expectoration is out, the patient will again have a dry cough, right? Till the expectoration is out, right? So there is always a mix. You can have pure dry cough, pure productive cough, or you can have a mix of the two, right? This is arbitrary classification. And then obviously in the pediatric age group, there is a whooping cough that also goes with the larynx, right? That's basically indicates laryngeal edema, basically. So that's the productive cough indicates there is something wrong with the connective, I mean the all the respiratory tree, bronchial tree, bronchial alveolar tree, and there is infective origin, you can have productive cough because of non-infective pathologies also. Like allergic catarrh, you can have pulmonary eosinophilia. Being a non-infective, you can have even bronchial asthma, right? Many a times you can have cough because of the pulmonary edema secondary to left-sided heart pathologies, or left atrial myxoma, or mitral stenosis. That initially may present like dry cough, or only complaint may be the cough with breathlessness, and later in the course they can have cough with secretion, not necessarily productive. So the productive cough is a sputum, indicates an infection or a pus. But you can have a cough which is essentially initially it is dry because of bronchial asthma, or all the bronchial obstructive disorders, or even COPD or a smoker's cough. And lastly, do not forget the left side of the heart, which also give rise to this sort of a complaint. We'll try and discuss and segregate all these things so that you will be able to come to exact basically conclusion, right? Unstable. Okay. Coming to the expectoration. Am I audible? What is this? Stop share. Stop share one. Is continued. Okay. Coming to the expectoration, right? You say the patient says, I have got a cough for last couple of weeks, and they say, do you take out a sputum, or is there a sputum or not? Then you ask whole variety of questions, and you must know how to interpret the information that is provided by the patient, right? In expectoration, you're obviously going to ask the quantity, the color, smell, and the consistency. These are the 4 things that you would like to know. If the patient says quantity is very less, what it means to you? And if the patient says quantity is too much, what it means to you? And what do you mean by little quantity, moderate quantity, or very large quantity? The small quantity, you can say maybe a teaspoon, something like that. The moderate quantity, you can say, is around 30 ml. And huge quantity, patient takes out cups and all of expectoration. That is classical of lung abscess and many other things, is more than that, right? So cup which is around 10-20 ml, you can call it as a moderate. The less than 5 ml, you can classify it as a mild, right? Coming to that's quantity. If the patient says the quantity, and quantity need not be the same, usually patient will say it's got a cough, which you ask for expectoration. He said yes, there is expectoration, and he said the quantity. What the classical patient will say, the early 2 days, for the first 2 days, it was thoda, right? A little bit, all the thing. And then for last 2 days, he says it is increasing, right? Or maybe exactly opposite, that earlier it was very much, right? And now it is decreasing, right? And now for last, maybe since morning, I did not have any expectation, but the cough is there. These are the 2 different scenarios we'll try and analyze basically. That the cough which was initially dry became productive in nature. The cough, the expectoration which was minimal, and now it is more. The first thing that should come to your mind, that the patient started with upper respiratory tract infection, went to the lower respiratory tract infection. The lower respiratory infection has started producing a cough, which is now increasing in nature, right? Classical of chronic bronchitis, right? So all the pneumonias, right? It means the pneumonia is now opening up, and that the pus is coming out, right? All the infected material is coming out. So the dry cough, small expectoration going into more expectoration, right? A cough, more of expectoration going down slowly and slowly, resolving pneumonia. That's how the quantity will decide you what is the sequence of things that is happening inside, right? Secondly, the color. How the knowledge or information related to the color of the expectoration will help you. It can be mucoid in nature or watery in color. It can be yellowish. It can be greenish. It can be blackish and red. These are the 4-5 colors that you know, right? It can be mucoid, watery, greenish, yellowish, and reddish. These are the very common, or you can have a mix of all the things. But the green indicates usually a viral pathology. Black indicates basically pollution and the resolving pneumonia. Red indicates infection and a wound inside, and if it is long standing, indicates a malignancy inside. Coming to the more common varieties of mucoid or watery, right? These are very common. The yellowish and greenish and blackish, these are the three things. Yes, you can get. But the common what you see is the mucoid, watery, or maybe somewhat green or yellow. This is what you see commonly. The watery indicates a catarrh. Catarrh in the sense there are secretions which are being cleared. Classical first thing is early viral or allergic. If it is yellowish, it indicates an infection, usually of bacterial origin, right? And the location will decide depending on the clinical examination and other thing. Then coming to the smell, right? The smell is many a times if you smell it particular thing, like say nowadays is may not be in your setting, but if you are working with the chest unit especially, you can make out the pathogens by smelling the sputum. Very putrefying smell indicates a pseudomonas, right? This, or you can smell the patient also and you can tell the diagnosis, right? Classical of lung abscess, classical of bronchiectasis. The smell of the breath also, leave aside the sputum. The sputum also is very pungent in smell. So bronchiectasis, lung abscess, and these are the things, or opening cavities. They are very pungent smelling, putrefying, right? So the smell. Usually, what are the common diseases which leads to cough? There is no smell, right? The smell is not that significant unless you are looking for certain pathogen, especially pseudomonas and the things like that, right? That is very important. And then the consistency. If it is a mucoid, it means there is some pus which is not resolved or not liquefied, and that's why it is somewhat firm in consistency, right? Some thick consistency. But if it is watery, it is easy for the body or the lung system to throw it away, right? So the consistency, because change in consistency is also important. The sputum which was watery or mucoid can become yellowish and thick, right? Especially tuberculosis, caseating tuberculosis, or the pulmonary tuberculosis, cavitating tuberculosis. The earlier, maybe first couple of weeks, you will find maybe somewhat watery and mucoid. Later you find very thick, right? Caseating material, just like a cheese, right? That's very important. So that's about the consistency. More important is the time of the day and position is the relation of the cough and the expectoration, the position of the body. Time of the day. If the cough is in the morning or at night, you assume that it is environmental in nature, allergic in nature, pollution in nature, right? Many times time of the day, especially if you are dealing with something like cardiac, right? The patient will always say that maybe at 2 o'clock, like say a patient of the mitral stenosis, say maybe 15-year, 20-year, maybe 25-year-old guy who says that at 2 o'clock every day he feels suffocated. He coughs and coughs. By the time he comes to the doctor, doctor bothers to examine the respiratory system, everything is normal, right? The doctor says you don't have anything, right? What happens when the patient trying to lie down? This is a condition called as orthopnea or PND, paroxysmal nocturnal dyspnea, which comes maybe around 2 a.m. or 3 a.m. early in the morning. That is indicative, very serious sign of left-sided heart problem. Common list in mitral stenosis, maybe myxomas and the things like that, right? So this should not be ruled out. So the time of the day is very important, and it's especially if it's a relation to the work, that is important. Some lady will always say that when she is cooking, while she is cooking, she will get a cough. You can look at, you can understand this allergic in cough, and the allergy is related to the cooking, right? Somebody says while traveling, the person he has got a cough. Time of the day along with the activity, right? You come to know that it is pollution related, possibly some fungus as an allergen. Fungus as an allergen, I'm telling you, not as an infectant, but as an allergen. Aspergillus is very common allergen that you get it from the AC outlets, right? So accordingly, and the position related, lying down left side and right side, especially if the cough, the expectoration is copious, the lying on the left, you got more expectoration coming out while the patient is lying down the left, it means the cavity is or the lesion is more on the right, accordingly. Because when the patient goes in lateral position, that the other side will try and empty the cup into this is called as a positional drainage basically. That is used in for favor, but so that patient can empty. Right, patient is okay while upright, lying down patient may be coughing, that you get in a lower part of the lung, the disease process is likely to be. If it is on the left, patient gets more symptoms while on the left, the right side is more likely to be disease, and the opposite side. There are many situations where we prescribe the positional drainage of the bronchiectasis, of the lung abscess, of the pneumonia, right? So this is very important. Coming to the cough, right? There are three varieties that we commonly notice in our clinical practice. Is a dry becoming productive, productive becoming dry, and changing nature. Sometimes it is dry, sometimes it's productive accordingly. So this is a very common scenario. You look for whether it's a dry or a productive. The patient says it was earlier it was dry and now it is productive. Earlier it was productive, now it is dry. Or sometime it is productive and sometime it is dry. These are the three clinical situations which we must try and address. If the cough which was initially dry and now becoming productive, that's what I said earlier, it means the respiratory infection from the upper respiratory tract is traveling to the lower respiratory tract, right? So that's why this is very important to know. And secondly, dry becoming productive, it only otherwise also, even if there is no upper respiratory tract infection, you can have the pneumonia, early phase of the pneumonia, you can have a dry cough. Once it becomes to liquefy the purulent material inside, then it becomes productive. You can understand how we can correlate with the pathophysiology happening inside. The productive becoming dry. This is another. See the pneumonia, now earlier the cough was productive because the things were needs to be thrown out. Since there is no material left, but the pathology of scarring is there, the cough becomes dry, right? And changing nature of the cough, right? It's acute and chronic. This is very important. Changing nature. Say you got a patient who has got bronchial asthma. He coughs, and coughs. He gets a superadded infection. He then throws away the sputum. Maybe after a week or two, or so with some treatment or with a natural healing, the infection gets controlled. Then again he gets a cough of his pneumonia, or smoking, or pollution, or COPD, irrespective, means all these causes together. So the changing nature of the cough, it is acute and chronic, or you have got a certain underlying pathology which gets infected. Commonly you get with COPD cases, chronic bronchitis cases, tuberculosis with the caseting cavity with superadded bacterial infection. These are the very common things where you get a changing nature of cough, right? What? Next. Okay. Then coming to the most important part of the history taking so far as the cough is related, right? Usually in clinical medicine, you don't cough as the only symptoms. You don't get it, right? Usually the cough is associated with something or the other. And something or the other decides the variety of cough, the lesion of the cough, the type of all other things. So it is absolutely important to know, study, recognize, and list the associated complaints. If you have got a cough, the commonest what we see is a cough with its other symptoms of upper respiratory tract infection, like sneezing, change in voice, throat pain, like difficulty in speaking, change of voice. Right? These are the things that will give the indication this is upper respiratory tract which is involved. So associated complaints of upper respiratory tract, right? Say you cannot advise every patient who comes to you cough for X-ray chest. Absolutely stupid. You must know. Obviously, when you are suspecting upper respiratory tract infection, there is unlikely to be anything in the X-ray chest, right? If you advise patient may or may not go for X-ray chest, but if it comes negative, the patient will have some different impression. So it is absolutely important to study the associated complaints. You must come to a logical conclusion and reasoning for advising further set of investigations, right? If I got patient gets upper respiratory infection like symptoms along with a cough 2 weeks back or 3 weeks back or maybe 4 weeks back, then it is absolutely justifiable to go for a associated lower respiratory problem also, isn't it? Why upper respiratory infection to continue for 4 weeks? Isn't it? That cannot be, means you got a cough with a sneezing and another thing for 4 weeks. You must look out for, and then the fever which is remittent, or maybe the cough with expectoration which is maybe in between. You must try and look out for some associated cause or associated pathology, right? In clinical practice, you don't get one thing at a time, right? So it should not be discussed or it should not be considered in isolation. So whole scenario for advising the investigation is important. The first important associated set of complaint is suggestive upper respiratory tract. Most important is commonest is cough with fever. Cough with fever goes with the infection. It can be viral, it can be bacterial, it can be parasitic, it can be tubercular, many other things. The location you can decide. But the cough with fever almost always goes with the infection, right? Do not forget that rare causes. Say if you got a patient with cough and fever for last say 5 months, you do all sorts of tests and you don't find anything. That is also possible. That's very rare, but you should not, but just for the sake of interest, you can look for some autoimmune conditions like SLEs, sarcoid, and other things, right? That apart, but occasionally you can have infection without fever or fever without an infection. But that is last in the list. But cough with fever is suggestive of infection. The commonest infection nowadays, including corona, is viral, right? Second is bacterial, third is tuberculosis, fourth is parasitic, and obviously the fungus may or may not have fever. Usually fungus doesn't come as a single entity, it comes along with tuberculosis, along with something else, right? But the fungal otherwise doesn't come as a isolated entity, very rarely, unless you've got a patient with AIDS or some immunocompromised fellow, right? More importantly, cough without fever. And there the problem lies, right? Okay, cough without fever. What would be the commonest 3 priorities? Allergies usually doesn't come with fever. I said usually, not always. You can have your allergy with infection and then it can, but the allergy is very common. Second, bronchial asthmas. You can have cough without fever. And third, do not forget malignancy, right? And I repeat, cough without fever, you can have tuberculosis also. You don't expect everything in every patient. It is a high index of suspicion that is important. So the cough with fever indicates a different set with the priorities which are different or the preferences which are different. Cough without fever gives you the different list with the preferences which are different than with the fever. Then hemoptysis and hematemesis. Hemoptysis almost always indicate endobronchial infection or endobronchial pathology. The pathology will differ. Commonest for you, hemoptysis is lower respiratory tract infection, into bracket commonly pneumonias, right? Or variety of segmental pneumonias. Okay, so the hemoptysis, and do not forget everything. The CA bronchus basically, it can have cough or only hemoptysis as the complaint. Only hemoptysis as the complaint. Aspergillosis, only hemoptysis as the complaint without anything, right? There are many other varieties which present hemoptysis, but for you, that do not go to that level. But hemoptysis to you is tuberculosis, or second possibility is malignancy. First, obviously, I said is pneumonia, right? Secondly, last is hematemesis. If there is a cough with hematemesis, think of GI lesion compressing on the trachea, right? And the commonest is esophageal pathology, into bracket malignancy, right? And then you can have a cough with a triad, fever, anorexia, and chest pain, right? Breathlessness and many other. So if you got a fever with anorexia, obviously the tuberculosis is the first diagnosis. Any long-standing infection, you will have cough with anorexia and the fever, obviously. And the chest pain indicates a localized, it will help you to localize the pathology and to give an indication. Unless there is a pleura involved, there is no pain. The lung per se is a painless structure. If there is a chest pain I am not talking of the cardiac causes, but fever or the cough with a chest pain, with or without fever, indicates a pleural pathology. The commonest is tuberculosis. Second, obviously with fever you will get is pneumonia or subpleural pleurisy or dry pleurisy or wet pleurisy. You will have chest pain. Or pneumonia also, if it is just under the pleura, very superficial pneumonia, you will have chest pain, right? And then the breathlessness. First thing is, if it is a generalized bronchial pathology, you will have breathlessness, right? If it is localized big pathology, then also you will have breathlessness. If you have got fluid on one or the other side, the breathlessness indicates very serious situation. It means more than 700 ml of the lung space is gone, basically. So the breathlessness, even you know, patient says the cough with the breathlessness, you do everything, you don't find anything, right? What else will you do, right? So the breathlessness indicates immediate need for investigation, first thing, right? Unless the patient is known asthmatic, you give some treatment for bronchial asthma, the breathlessness is relieved, then you need not go for further investigation. But a new patient coming to you without a history of asthma, a breathlessness demands an investigation, right? And then maybe there may be variety of other complaints also. Commonest is, especially in a female, is micturition problem, stress incontinence you can have, right? You can have hernia coming out of chronic cough and stress incontinence. You can have spontaneous pneumothorax leading to chest pain and many other things. So these are the associated complaints that depends on the severity of cough, type of patient, and associated comorbid condition, right? Coming to the next part is the positive history or negative history, right? This is absolutely important to write a positive significant history initially and positive the significant negative history in the recording, so that when the patient comes to you for follow-up, you will find it easy to compare the patient, right? Something patient says, the patient has got a say fever and a cough, right? Should we write about hemoptysis or not? So you write there is no hemoptysis, because the patient next time when the patient will come and he says the blood was there, it only means that time it was not there. It is there. It is a new development. Something else has happened. So all those things which are mentioned in the associated complaints should be considered positively, or when they are not there, should be written as not existing. So these are all the conditions which should be included either in the positive side or on the negative side. This is very important, right? Coming to the history of the present illness is the treatment history, right? What type of treatment patient? If it is acute case, the patient is attended to maybe for in an hour, few hours, or in a day, patient may not have some treatment, any treatment. So you write no treatment taken, right? But in say commonly you see the chronic patient of cough has undergone a whole set of investigations and treatment protocols, right? Maybe antibiotic, antitubercle, antispasmodic, bronchodilator, mucolytic agents, this thing and that thing, all Ayurvedic, homeopathic, all multipathies and mix and this thing. You write everything, try to know everything in depth, right? The type of treatment the patient has taken, and more important, the response to it. Whether the patient has taken tablet, what happened after taking the tablet? Whether the patient has taken nebulizer, what happened after nebulizer? Whether the patient has taken injection, what happened after the injections, right? The response to the treatment gives you an indication what is going to suit to the patient, right? What is going to help to the patient? Whether the patient was hospitalized, what was the situation after the hospitalization, right? And which are the things which did not work and which are the things which work. In case the patient is coming to you, maybe say a patient of bronchial asthma or tuberculosis, he will have cough for years, or COPD, he will have cough years. Nothing great about diagnosing and evaluating a patient of cough, right? But what all things that it helped? Say if somebody is already on some bronchodilator and he says that he's taking, you just ask him how long patient you are taking this tablet. Patient says I'm taking this last say a couple of months or 3 months, and then he said he is not okay with the tablet or the prescription. What is the rationale in continuing the same treatment when the patient himself says that the same treatment is not helping him? You should be wise enough to change the protocol, right? So it is important what has helped the patient, what has not helped the patient, right? And then more importantly, the advice after the treatment. So the patient has taken a whole set of investigations, and then the treatment investigations were after the investigation, the treatment was planned, it was advised, the patient executed. What was the follow-up treatment that was advised? Was he advised to continue anti-tubercular drug? Did he complete the anti-tubercular drug? Did he discontinue it between? Isn't it? So if you are, the commonly it happens with the patient of tuberculosis, you diagnose the patient, you advise the patient for say 9 months treatment. Patient stops after 6 months. And then he may land after a year. It only means it is a recurrence. And secondary is the incomplete treatment of the first thing, right? Because that is very important. And you must write down every investigation that was done and the reports thereof, right? Why it is important to write the investigation and report? Because it will help you to compare with the next report or present report, right? Medico-legally also it is important for you to take a due note. Okay. किती वेळ आहे अजून? दोन मिनिटं. Okay, now I will discontinue with this session, and maybe after a few minutes I will join to the next. Thank you. Meeting for all.